Right, so in this video, we'll learn how to extract data from an SQLite table and use that data within Microsoft products like Microsoft Excel or Power BI or other Microsoft platforms. So the process essentially involves a few steps, and none of that is really complicated, but some of them can be a bit nuanced. If I break down the steps, I think first what you need to do is you need to know what type of machine you have. You then need to download the correct version of the driver. Then you need to know how to run the correct OBDC. And then you need to create a connection. And then once the connection is created, you can just use that within Microsoft products. So let's go through it step by step. So in order to find out what system you have, you just go on the start window and type system. Once you do that and click on system information, a window like this will pop up. So let me repeat this step. So what you do is you go on your start, type system, and then click on system info. And then from that info, you get this kind of a window which shows you like this is a 64 bits machine. So you need to find out the same for your own machine. So now that you know you need a 64-bit machine, what you can then do is you can search for a SQLite3 OBDC driver for Windows 64, Win64, and this will give you, essentially this is the link I normally use. So go into this link and essentially in here you will find out this 64 version, this exe file. So I'd suggest download this and run this on your machine. So before we dive into how we get into OBDC, I just want to show you where the underlying database file is. And in order to do that, I'm using something called, this is a software which helps visualizing a database. So I'm using DB Browser. It's a free software, highly recommend it if you want to download this. Otherwise, this step doesn't need this software, it's just to help you visualize where I'm going. So let me show you. This is the file, this is the test file, which is in this location. I would be using or trying to bring in Excel or other platforms. And it has a simple table which is called average grades, and this is the table. So if we are successful, we should see this table in an Excel or Power BI file. So the important takeaway from this is we need to know where our file is saved. So this is the test file I'm pointing to right now, which we want to create a connection for. So let's dive into the next step now. So when you're creating the OBDC connection, it's quite straightforward actually, but this is where it can go really wrong and you can go around in circles and thinking probably it doesn't work. But that's why I want to take a bit of time and explain a bit more detail. So what I want you to do is essentially try to access your administrative tools. To do that, I'm going to control panel first and see if I can run. So yeah. So I think if I go to my control panel and I think you could do it in a variety of different ways. It sometimes doesn't show this full view. So sometimes it will just show these categories. So you don't need to see these categories. Just go into, let's say, large icons and then go into administrative tools. And here is what happens. Every window typically has both of these drivers, and the mistake which sometimes you make is essentially you end up opening the wrong OBDC driver and not realize you are in the wrong driver. So I'll show you the correct driver and how it looks. So if you click the 64 bits one, this is how it should look. And in the drivers tab, you should see this SQLite3 driver, which we have just installed by downloading. So it's very important to be able to see that. So let me quickly show you. If you are in this 32 bits, you won't be, that bit is not going to come up. So you don't have that SQLite3 driver here, which you absolutely need. So let's go into the right version and try and create a connection. And to create a connection, you just go add and In this, you also then select your right version, then you hit finish. Then just asking for your for a name, and let's say test is the name of the data source. I've just made it up, and now all we need to do is we go into where that SQL file is and literally just connect it in here, and we hit OK. And now we have a test file. This is what you want to have. So now I think we've gone through most of the steps. So now to the fun part where we can actually see the results. So let me fire up an Excel. So it should be pretty easy now. You run an Excel file, you go in data, you go to get the get data tab, go in other sources, go in OBDC, and let's see what comes up. So you can see that I have got this test version coming up, which we have just created. So let me click that, click OK. And this is the other part where you could really get, like, I didn't put a username or any passwords on that file. So it comes up and you cannot connect because you can see you just get this error. So all you need to do here is get to the default, sorry, get into the Windows and say use current credentials. That's all needed. And once you are through this step, you can see that table which I mentioned when I showed you that to the DB browser, just hit this and hit load. And you can see your data is in Excel. Right, so now in Power BI, pretty much the same process. Some of the options are slightly different than Excel. Again, in Home, in Power BI desktop version, Home, you click on Get Data. You don't see an OBDC straight away here, but then you click on More. Then again, you don't see it, so you can go Others, and then you can see the ODBC here, and then Connect. And then again, you do the same, select the object you've created, because once you create that object, this should be able to connect with any ODBC connection. And then hit OK. Same thing here, you go in Windows and say use your current credentials, and pretty much the job is done. You have the data coming in. So that is pretty much it in terms of loading data from an SQLite3 into Microsoft-based environment, which is both in Excel or in Power BI or other sources. So here, like you can see, I've just brought the full data in. I think I'll just repeat some of the two main problems which you would have essentially is either you are not looking at the right OBDC data source, or you don't have the right driver, which I've shown you where to go, or you are on the credentials page, you get stuck up. So please just follow this video step by step, and you shouldn't have any problems. Hope this video was helpful, and I'll see you in the next video.